Okay. Well, since it's 11 o'clock, we'll just go ahead and kind of jump in. Our goal is to get you guys out of here a little early today. So hopefully we go over everything clearly. If you have any questions as we go along, don't hesitate to pop those into the chat as they're fresh on your mind, or just feel free to ask as well. We'll have some time for questions at the end. And then, like I mentioned, we are recording. So if you would like a copy of the recording, please just reach out to us after. It usually takes maybe a day or so to get the recording, but we will be sure to send that to you. So Rosalind, if you want to go ahead and start sharing the presentation. And we will just kind of jump into introductions. For those of you that I have not met, I am Meg Blue. I am our Vice President of Community Investments here at United Way of the Midlands, and happy to be walking through this process with all of you as we jump into our Community Impact Fund. So Rosalind, I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of take it away for the time being.
Okay, are you seeing the screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. Okay, so I'm Rosalind Garrett. I'm a manager of community investments, and I've been with United Way since March. This will be my first time going through the process from the beginning, so I'm glad to see you all here and to go through this process with you. So this first slide is just a introduction of the process outline, some of which we've already been through. So of course, the agency training and the LOIs, then the due diligence meetings, and we are also in the process of getting volunteers for application reviewing. Application portal will open January 8th, and then those applications will be due January 30th. During February and May, we'll have the volunteer review process. So that'll be the community reviewers as well as our staff. So Meg and myself, there will be funding meetings also going on at that time. And then in June, those recommendations that are made through community reviewers and Meg and myself will go to the board for final approval. And then we'll have grant agreements going out to those programs who were chosen to receive funding for approval and signatures. And then grant funding will begin in July with monthly installment payments. With that in mind, we just want to have a little messaging before we start this process with you all. During the LOI process, we received numerous applications and then expect to also receive a number of applications and have a highly competitive process. And due to that, there's going to be, of course, requests that are going to be over the amount that we have available for funding due to federal funds expiration, funder changing priorities, decreasing, and then also increases in designations. So we want to be very transparent in saying that an invitation to apply does not necessarily guarantee for funding. With that in mind, we do want to set you all up for as much success as possible in applying. So we have a few pointers here that we want to let you all know that through the history, volunteers are looking for when you're applying. So they're looking for alignment with United Way mission and visions, addressing clear social and economic disparity, unique program delivery and critical target population, reflective of community and clear understanding of target population. You want to highlight the urgency of need, disparity, and why this program is essential to a community safety net, and that we are making sure we're not duplicating programs, realistic requests and budgeting, and that you have stable finances and efficient use of funds. Um, and again, being able to record results and be able to show the effectiveness of your programming. Um, in essence, you want to be able to show that the program is going to be the best use of funds and why it's essential to the community. These are just a few tips for completing your application. So You want to be real clear in your language when you're answering the questions during the application process. Try to avoid the overuse of acronyms, and that's not to say don't use them at all, but of course, please be sure to be explaining them early on in your application so the volunteers and staff know that what you're talking about in your application. Be clear about your services, what your program is going to be providing. Demonstrate equity throughout your application, share your results, and the ability to be able to report back the outcomes, effectiveness of your program. Be consistent, don't overpromise, and use the application guide. And beware of using GPT, excuse me, when completing your application. You want to make sure that you're answering the who, what, when, and why of your program and avoid long answers that are not really addressing the questions that are in the application. Now I will turn it over to Meg. She's going to give a demonstration of how to complete the application in the submission portal.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen really quick so that you all can see where I'm at. Okay, so this is my test agency in the Wise Hive portal. So you will go in and log in using the exact same link you did when you created your letter of intent. And as all of your letters of intent for all of your programs have been moved forward to the application process at this point, your page should look exactly like this with your each of your programs individually having its own box and having it labeled under application intake there. So if it's blue, it means it is in progress and ready to be worked on. One thing I do want to note is at any time, and this is especially for newer users to the system, you can go in and edit your profile. So I would encourage all of you to go in and take a look at that before you start your application, as pieces of your profile will automatically pull into the application. So you're not having to duplicate responses or answers. So I would just go in and hit edit and take a quick look at those profiles to make sure we've got the right people in the right places and everything's up to date so you don't have to duplicate work as you're going throughout your application. So you will just go in and click on your program and go into this open here on the upper right. You'll see that there is a countdown on the top that lets you know how many days are left before the submission is due. And it is on the same page as that letter of intent would have been on as well, with the marking that says that that has been submitted. So what you will do is you will just go in and open that application. Again, if you submitted for multiple programs, you will do an application for each program. So please just be conscious of that as you are allocating your time. So you'll start your application with that organizational financial review. Um, and I would just really encourage in the attachment to the invitation for this training session is the application guide. Use that as a resource throughout. We really tried to be as transparent as possible with what we were looking for in answers, what formulas to use as you are calculating that financial review piece. So please reference that. If for some reason you can't pull it from the invitation for this meeting, let us know. We'll send you a PDF, no problem. So you'll start off with that financial review. Um, there are a few sections that are grayed out. These will auto calculate as you are filling in your numbers. So I would say double check to make sure your math looks right based on your organizational numbers and what is auto calculating here in the application. And in the risk assessment, we are really looking at that short-term cash flow, long-term cash flow, overhead, and months in reserve. So all of these will auto-populate based on the numbers that you put in above. And there is space to explain if those ratios are not met. So I would just say if ratios are not met, please just be very clear here as to why or what might be going on within your organization. A piece to point out in the program budget, you have two options here. You can upload your own program budget that you use. If you do that, you do not need to fill out this section here, which is just a budget template that we offer for you to be able to fill out. So if you upload your own budget, this essentially proposed an expense section will disappear as it's not something that needs to be filled out. Um, if you do fill out this section, do not worry about attaching that program budget that you might utilize. So feel free to use whatever makes sense for you in your program. There's no real preference here. We want to be able to give you the options that make sense for you. Um, you'll then move down to that budget narrative. I do want to note that under amount requested, unless we have had conversations outside of your letter of intent, this amount should be the same as or less than what you requested in your letter of intent. So you cannot and should not ask for more than what you initially proposed. I should note that most of our grant agreements will fall between 50 to 75,000. If we're looking at a maximum, there will be some exceptions, but not many will fall above $100,000. So I would say please be planning to fall somewhere in there as you're looking at your projections for your organizational budgets over the next couple of years based on United Way funding. And then if you are a program that is new to United Way funding, that request, as a reminder, is $25,000 or less. So just, I would say, be very clear here with your use of funds. As a reminder, you are speaking with volunteer reviewers from the community. So be as descriptive as you can possibly be in these sections. This is the area here when we jump down to the program application and organizational questions that do pull directly from your profile. So again, that reminder to make sure that that section is up to date. And you'll just go through here and fill out the section. We do have questions to see kind of where your organization might be at in the nonprofit life cycle. That really helps us give some perspective to volunteers when looking at your applications and maybe that growth. So feel free to use these links to kind of see what we're looking at and trying to get at with some of these questions. And then we get into really some of those program specific. So this is where you want to look at kind of your focus area, what need you're specifically addressing, and just pointing out specifically kind of those subject areas that Rosalind mentioned earlier to just be aware of and to really emphasize as you are completing your application. We do ask about primary populations. You can fill out noting that many of your programs serve multiples of these populations. You can fill in for as many of these as your organization might majority serve. If you do not serve maybe that specific population or don't have any demographics collected, just put a 0 as all of these are required. And then same with when looking at our distribution between counties that are served with that Douglas, Sarpy, or Potawatomi. We then move into the impact section of the application where we're looking at kind of that evaluation or the circumstances that are being approved for your programming, making sure that these are measurable, and I would say realistic. So when looking at the amount of funds you might be requesting, what is that true realistic anticipated number served over the next year, I think is key. If you're looking at a decrease in funding overall for your program, so you're anticipating having to serve less individuals, really explain that here because I think that provides context to volunteers that they may not understand otherwise if there's not that clear explanation there. And then the last section is those attachments. So required, an audit is required for organizations with a revenue over 500,000. If your revenue is under that, you can attach your board approved financial statement. So we need those, your most recent 990, and then your current board of directors. And that most recent 990 is what you should be utilizing as you're going through that organizational budget section as well. And then optional, if you filled out our budget, you can attach your own program budget here. Logic models, I think our volunteers do love seeing videos if you have them. Anything to really provide more description about your programming. Um, because we recognize that you can only fit so much into an application, and reviewing and looking at applications can be kind of repetitive and you can get into a cycle. So I always say that anything to kind of break that up and provide more emphasis into what you're doing in a different and unique way, I think is helpful. So again, make sure that you sign and date and mark your application as complete. Do note that, you don't need to complete this in one go. Just make sure that if you're doing this over a period of time, that you are saving the draft, so that way your work is not lost. Once you mark complete, you will be taken back to that main page. And then this submit button up here will be, I think in blue and not grayed out. So same with the letter of intent, you will need to hit submit for that application to actually be submitted. So just double check that once you mark complete. It's not finished. Go in and hit that submit button. So I think with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And Roslyn, if you want to pull up that PowerPoint. Perfect. We can go to that next slide. They're tiny words in that screenshot. Okay. So just a reminder about our impact areas. So as you saw on the application, and we'll see, we ask you for kind of that primary area that your program falls under, but then we also offer opportunity for a secondary area, knowing that many of your programming might fall under multiple areas that United Way is focused on. So if you have questions about where you think your program might fall under, or just want to have a discussion about it, don't hesitate to reach out to us. But I think using this up here as just a reminder that these are kind of our four areas and what tends to fall under them for programming. This is also linked in the application under strategy matrix. So you'll be able to see that and utilize it as you're filling your application out. Next page, Roslyn. I think finally just some FAQs. I noted as we were going through the application, but just that audit, if you are an organization again with that revenue over 500,000, you should have an audit. You can, apply with those board approved financial statements, but this will increase the risk assessed. We do have our finance department complete kind of a financial risk screening to just ensure organizational financial health. So just note that with those metrics listed in the application, that short-term cash flow, long-term cash flow, overhead and months in reserve, we're also looking at this piece as well. Again, that use of funds, really being very clear in describing that. So please do provide explanation if these funds are being used for a match in any way, maybe why that specific amount is being requested. Just the more guidance you can give to volunteers, the better. You'll notice a lot of drop downs throughout. This is really, the purpose is to really streamline the application, and we really want to avoid the vague answers when possible. Um, So if you have questions, if you're not feeling like maybe you're fitting in one of the drop downs, again, do reach out to us. It's helpful to have conversations instead of just guessing. And then we're able to provide additional context when we are having conversations with volunteers, if they might have questions, if we've had those conversations on the front end. So it really helps us best represent you as an organization and a program. And then when it comes to that nonprofit life cycle that we're asking about, please don't take too much time in overthinking that. I think sometimes we get stuck in some of those things. So it helps us to understand how to review and consider your application in context. So this is not a section that is necessarily scored on a rubric, but it just helps provide that additional information and context. Next slide. So before we wrap up with any questions, I just want to make sure that, please recognize that you can use myself and Roslyn, our team, for assistance as you go about completing these applications. We are happy to review before submission and provide feedback. These are due January 31st at 5. So if you would like us to review, please just make sure there's time baked in to do that. So, don't ask us to do a review and provide feedback in the last couple days before it's due. A week or so in advance is helpful. If you have questions or want to jump on a meeting, we are happy to do that as well. We recognize that this is a very, very competitive landscape right now. And we want to be able to be as transparent and as helpful as possible as you are completing these applications. Um, so again, I think you have Roslyn and I's contact information. That community investment inbox, if you're not quite sure who to reach out to, is also helpful. You've got the tools with the application guide to utilize throughout. And then again, if you would like a copy of the recording, don't hesitate to reach out to us to receive that as well. Um, but yeah, we'll take the last couple minutes here to see if we have any questions from anyone on the call.
I have a quick question, Meg.
Yeah,
So I just confirming, so the 31st is a Saturday. So
yeah,
it is due on the Saturday at 5.
yeah. Why
Okay,
not
just wanted to make
give the
sure.
weekend? Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then these will open at 8 a.m. On Thursday morning this week. So it looks like we have a question in the chat. How recent does the audit need to be? It just needs to be your most recent. If you have specific questions about your organization and you're going back and forth between maybe our audit is a little bit older and your board approved financials might be a better route to go, let's just have those conversations offline and kind of talk through it just to see what might make sense for your program. Any other questions?
Meg,
Hi,
oh,
sorry.
whoever that
Oh,
was, go ahead. I'll go next.
If we submit a video, do you want to keep us to keep it under a certain amount of time?
I would say that is up to you. I think attention wise, we usually see like 2 minutes is about the right mark for folks.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's perfect.
Okay. Amy, were you gonna ask a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, you touched on this earlier, but if you could speak to like the schedule of funding disbursements, I'm, new to the process, so the naming convention is 2026, 2028. And
Hmm.
so how did disbursements work within that timeline if awarded?
Yeah, so it's 2 years of funding. So funding, so let's say you're awarded 25,000, that's 25,000 in year one, 25,000 in year two for a $50,000 investment. Year two is dependent on, we put a clause in our grant agreement, dependent on funds raised, reporting, meeting metrics and such, and just overall partnership. But the intent is to award everyone at that full amount in year two. So the funds are dispersed on a monthly basis. So you'll receive essentially a percentage, the same percentage each month for your program over the 2 years. And then it looks like we had another question. If an agency were to submit a video, will a link to the video suffice? Yep, absolutely. You can and just include a link in there. That should be fine. Okay. Well, not seeing any other questions from the group. We will go ahead and kind of in the recording, Rosalind and I will hang on for a quick second in case there's any last. But again, if you've got program specific questions or anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We will schedule some time to chat. We know that for those of you that are currently receiving United Way funding too, that this is also a time where reports are coming due too. So we recognize that this is a tough time. So we just thank you for all you're doing for the community, and don't hesitate to reach out, and have a good day. Happy New Year, everybody.